Hey everyone, Andrew here. I'm back with 3 encounters that'll make you question what's actually possible. Tonight's stories don't share a location or a theme. They share something more unsettling. They're all real experiences that broke the normal rules of reality. Different people, different places, different circumstances. But each one faced something that shouldn't exist according to everything we think we know. Identities masked for privacy. Narratives sharpened for clarity. But the core events? Untouched and exactly as they unfolded. Before we dive in, where are you listening from? And what does your clock say? Drop it in the comments. Knowing these stories are being heard across different places and time somehow makes them feel more real. The veil is thin tonight. Let's see what's on the other side. Story 1. The Forest Service Relay Station. I worked as a communications technician for the Forest Service in Northern California from 2018 to 2021. My primary responsibility involved maintaining radio relay stations positioned throughout remote wilderness areas. These stations enabled communication between fire lookouts, ranger stations, and emergency response teams operating in regions where conventional signal infrastructure did not exist. The relay stations themselves were not complex structures. Each consisted of a small equipment shelter approximately 8 feet by 10 feet, containing battery banks, solar charge controllers, and radio repeater equipment. Most stations were accessible only by hiking trail or service road and required quarterly maintenance visits to verify operational status and replace damaged components. In October of 2019, I received a work order to inspect Station 47, located approximately 18 miles northeast of the nearest paved road. The station sat on a ridgeline overlooking a drainage basin that emptied into the Klamath River system. Access required a 4-hour hike from the closest parking area. Station 47 had experienced intermittent signal degradation over the previous 6 weeks. Radio traffic would transmit normally, then deteriorate into static, then resume without apparent cause. The pattern did not correspond to weather events, solar activity, or equipment cycling. Troubleshooting from the district office had proven ineffective. I departed the trailhead at 6:30 a.m. on a Thursday morning. Weather conditions were favorable. Temperature at departure was 42 degrees with clear visibility. The trail ascended steadily through mixed conifer forest before transitioning to exposed granite and manzanita scrub near the ridgeline. I reached the relay station at approximately 10:45 a.m. The structure appeared undamaged from the exterior. Solar panels showed no visible cracks or debris accumulation. The equipment shelter door remained locked and sealed against weather intrusion. Upon unlocking the shelter, I conducted a standard visual inspection. Battery voltage registered within acceptable parameters. Charge controller indicated normal solar input. Radio equipment powered on without error codes. All physical connections appeared secure. I initiated a radio check with the district office. Transmission quality was clear. The dispatcher confirmed signal strength at their location registered 5 bars. No degradation was apparent. I proceeded with routine maintenance tasks. Battery terminals were cleaned and retorqued to specification. Antenna connections were inspected for corrosion. Equipment ventilation fans were cleared of dust accumulation. During this process, I noticed something inconsistent with prior visits. The interior of the equipment shelter contained a smell I had not encountered before. It was not consistent with rodent infestation, water intrusion, or electrical malfunction. The odor resembled organic decay but with a chemical undertone I could not identify. I searched the shelter thoroughly. No animal remains were discovered. No water stains indicated leakage. No components showed thermal damage or off-gassing. The smell intensified near the rear corner of the shelter where spare battery cables were stored in a plastic bin. I removed the bin and examined the floor beneath. The concrete pad showed no cracks or moisture. I replaced the bin and stepped outside to radio the district office. As I keyed the microphone, I heard something from inside the shelter that should not have been possible. My voice. Not an echo or feedback. My voice transmitting a radio check identical to the one I had just performed, but delayed by approximately 3 seconds. I released the microphone key and listened. The transmission continued. My voice repeated the entire radio check sequence exactly as I had delivered it moments earlier, including verbal pauses and throat clearing. I entered the shelter and examined the radio equipment. No active transmissions were indicated on the display. The equipment was receiving only, not transmitting. I switched the radio to a different channel. My delayed voice followed, continuing the repeated transmission on the new frequency. I powered down the radio completely. The transmission stopped. I waited 30 seconds, then powered the equipment back on. Normal operation resumed. No delayed transmissions occurred. I reported the incident to the district office. The dispatcher requested I remain on site and conduct additional tests. I complied. Over the next 40 minutes, I transmitted test sequences at varying intervals. Each transmission was received normally at the district office with no delay or repetition. I was instructed to complete the maintenance checklist and return to the trailhead. If anomalous behavior recurred, I should document the time and frequency, then exit the site immediately. I resumed work. The organic smell had dissipated. Equipment readings remained stable. At approximately 1:15 p.m., I prepared to secure the shelter and begin the return hike. As I reached for the door, the radio activated without input. A voice transmitted. It was not mine. It was not anyone I recognized. The voice spoke in measured tones, providing a series of numbers. They did not correspond to frequencies, coordinates, or any standard radio protocol I had been trained to recognize. The transmission lasted 14 seconds, then terminated. I immediately contacted the district office. The dispatcher confirmed they had received no transmission from Station 47 during that time frame. I was instructed to power down all equipment, lock the shelter, and return to the trailhead without delay. I complied. The hike down took 3 hours and 40 minutes. I encountered no other individuals on the trail. Upon returning to the district office, I submitted a detailed incident report. The numbers from the transmission were analyzed by technical staff. They did not match any known code system, call sign format, or coordinate notation. 2 days later, a senior technician accompanied by a supervisor hiked to Station 47. They reported normal equipment operation with no anomalous transmissions or odors. The shelter was inspected for unauthorized access. No evidence of tampering was found. The intermittent signal degradation ceased following their visit. Station 47 operated without incident for the next 18 months. In April of 2021, I was reassigned to a different district. During equipment inventory prior to my departure, I reviewed maintenance logs for all stations I had serviced. Station 47's log contained an entry I had not made. It was dated 3 days after my October 2019 visit. The entry stated that routine maintenance had been completed and the shelter interior had been cleared of residual material. No description of the material was provided. The entry was initialed, but the initials did not match any current or former staff member I could identify. I inquired with the district supervisor. He stated he had no knowledge of additional visits to Station 47 during that period and suggested the entry might have been misfiled from a different location. I did not pursue the matter further. Station 47 remains operational. It is currently serviced by a different technician on a standard quarterly schedule. I have not returned to that location. Approximately 6 months after leaving the Forest Service, I was contacted by a former colleague. He asked if I had experienced anything unusual at Station 47. I confirmed that I had and asked why he was inquiring. He stated that the current technician had reported hearing voice transmissions that did not originate from any known source. The transmissions consisted of numbered sequences identical to those I had documented in my incident report. The current technician had requested reassignment. His request was approved without explanation. Station 47 is now serviced remotely when possible. In-person maintenance visits have been reduced to annual inspections conducted by 2-person teams. I retain a copy of my original incident report. The numbered sequence I documented was 71947311528. I have not determined its significance. No interpretation has been provided by Forest Service personnel. The equipment shelter remains locked. The station continues to relay radio traffic as designed. The smell has not been reported again. I no longer work in telecommunications. I accepted a position in urban infrastructure maintenance where all equipment is accessible by vehicle and located within populated areas. I do not hike in remote wilderness areas anymore. Story 2. The sublet apartment on Moreland Street. My name is Sarah, and in 2017, I accepted a short-term sublet in a city I had recently moved to for graduate school. Housing options near the university were limited and expensive. A 3-month sublet became available through a student housing board. The rent was significantly below market rate. The apartment was located on Moreland Street in an older residential building constructed sometime in the 1940s. The building contained 12 units distributed across 4 floors. My unit was on the 3rd floor, facing the street. The previous tenant was a graduate student who had left the country for a research fellowship. He had paid rent through the end of the semester but would not be returning. The The sublet arrangement required minimal paperwork and no background check. I transferred the deposit and moved in on a Saturday in late August. The apartment consisted of a combined living and sleeping area, a small kitchen, and a bathroom with original tile. The windows were tall and faced west, providing substantial afternoon light. Furnishings were minimal: a futon, a desk, 2 folding chairs, and a bookshelf. The first 2 weeks proceeded without incident. I attended orientation events, purchased textbooks, and established daily routines. The apartment was quiet. Neighbors were rarely seen. Building sounds were typical: footsteps in the hallway, plumbing noise, occasional door closures. In the 3rd week, I began noticing irregularities. Items I had placed in specific locations would be found elsewhere. A coffee mug I left on the desk would appear in the kitchen sink. A textbook I had positioned on the bookshelf would be on the floor, spine up, open to a page I had not been reading. Initially, I attributed this to fatigue or distraction. Graduate coursework was demanding, and I assumed I was misremembering my actions. The pattern continued. Objects moved with increasing frequency. A jacket I hung on a wall hook would be draped over the back of a chair. Shoes I left by the door would be aligned beneath the window. I lived alone. The apartment door remained locked when I was absent. No signs of forced entry were visible. One evening in mid-September, I returned from the library at approximately 9:30 p.m. Upon entering, I noticed the futon had been repositioned. It had been placed against the north wall when I left. It was now angled in the center of the room, facing the window. Moving the futon required effort. It was not a lightweight piece of furniture. I had struggled to position it against the wall during move-in. I examined the floor. Drag marks were visible in the carpet, leading from the wall to the futon's current position. I checked the door lock. It functioned normally and showed no signs of tampering. The windows were locked from the inside. I contacted the building superintendent. He arrived 20 minutes later. I explained the situation. He inspected the apartment and found no evidence of unauthorized entry. He asked if I had given anyone a key. I had not. He suggested I might be experiencing stress-related memory lapses and recommended I speak with student health services if the concerns persisted. After he left, I photographed the apartment layout using my phone. I documented the position of furniture and objects before leaving for class the following morning. When I returned that afternoon, the futon had been moved again. It was now positioned against the east wall. The photographs confirmed this was not where it had been that morning. I did not contact the superintendent again. I moved the futon back to its original position and decided to remain in the apartment that evening to observe. At approximately 11:40 p.m., I heard movement in the living area. I had been reading in bed with the lights on. The sound was distinct, the futon scraping across the floor. I stood and looked into the living area. The futon was moving. Not rapidly, but in a controlled manner, as if being pushed or pulled. No person was visible. No explanation presented itself. The futon stopped moving after traveling approximately 3 feet. It remained in place, angled toward the window. I did not approach it. I remained in the bedroom area with the lights on until morning. The next day, I contacted the previous tenant through the email address provided in the sublet agreement. I asked if he had experienced anything unusual during his tenancy. He responded within hours. His message was brief. He confirmed he had experienced similar occurrences and had vacated the apartment earlier than initially planned. He did not provide additional details and requested I not contact him again regarding the apartment. I researched the building's history through city records. The structure had been a residential hotel prior to conversion into individual apartments in the 1970s. No significant incidents were documented in available records. I considered terminating the sublet early but had limited financial resources and no alternative housing secured. I continued living in the apartment with modifications to my routine. I stopped leaving objects in predictable locations. I moved the futon to the hallway outside my unit and slept on a sleeping bag on the floor. The object displacement continued. Items would still be moved, but without the futon present, the disturbances became less pronounced. In late October, I was studying at the desk when I noticed something on the window glass. Writing. Not from the outside, but on the interior surface, as if traced with a finger. The words were simple: "Still here." I had not written them. The window had been cleaned days earlier. No condensation was present to enable finger tracing. I documented the writing with photographs, then wiped the window clean. The following morning, different words appeared: "You see me." I did not see anyone. The apartment remained empty except for myself. I stopped wiping the messages away. New words would appear every few days. They were not threatening, but they were persistent. I waited. You stayed. Why are you still here? I endured until the sublet term concluded in November. I vacated the apartment 2 days before the lease ended and forfeited the remaining rent. I did not inform the landlord of the disturbances. I returned the keys and provided no forwarding address. Several months later, I encountered a university housing administrator at a campus event. During conversation, I mentioned the Moreland Street building. Her expression changed. She asked which unit I had occupied. When I told her, she became quiet. She then stated that the unit had been removed from the Student Housing Board listings due to tenant retention issues. She did not elaborate. I did not ask. I later learned through informal channels that multiple tenants had vacated that unit within short time frames. The building owner had stopped renting it and left it vacant. I completed my graduate program and relocated to a different city. I have not returned to that area. Occasionally, I search online for the Moreland Street address. The building still stands. Property records indicate the third-floor unit remains unoccupied. Recent satellite imagery shows the windows on the third floor covered from the inside, though other units in the building have visible curtains or blinds in normal configurations. I retained the photographs I took of the window messages. The final message I documented before leaving stated, "I will wait." I do not know who or what wrote those words. I do not know if the messages continue in my absence. I have not sublet another apartment since. Story 3. The night shift at Riverside Hospital. I worked as a patient transporter at Riverside Hospital from 2015 to 2018. My shift ran from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., Sunday through Thursday. The role required moving patients between departments, delivering lab samples, and transporting deceased individuals to the morgue. Riverside Hospital was constructed in 1962. The building contained 7 floors with the morgue located in the basement level. Access to the morgue required keycard authorization and was restricted to specific personnel. The morgue itself consisted of a receiving area, a preparation room, and a refrigerated storage unit capable of holding 12 bodies. Standard protocol required that deceased patients be transported to the morgue within 2 hours of time of death. During my 3rd month of employment, I began to notice a pattern during morgue deliveries. The basement corridor leading to the morgue contained 6 overhead light fixtures spaced at regular intervals. The 3rd fixture, positioned approximately halfway between the elevator and the morgue entrance, would flicker when I passed beneath it with a deceased patient on the gurney. Initially, I attributed this to electrical instability or sensor sensitivity triggered by movement. However, the fixture only flickered when transporting deceased patients. It remained stable during other trips through the corridor. I reported the malfunctioning light to facilities management. A work order was submitted. The fixture was inspected and replaced. The flickering continued. After the fixture replacement, I began to observe additional irregularities. When approaching the morgue entrance with a deceased patient, I would occasionally hear sounds from within the morgue itself. These sounds were inconsistent with normal refrigeration equipment operation. They resembled movement, footsteps, objects being repositioned, metallic impacts. Upon entering the morgue, I would find no one present. Equipment remained in standard positions. No disturbance was evident. I mentioned this to a colleague who also worked night shift. She confirmed similar experiences. She stated that morgue sounds were common knowledge among transporters but were not discussed openly to avoid seeming unprofessional. In January of 2016, I received a transport request at 2:30 a.m. A patient had expired on the 4th floor. I collected the gurney and proceeded to the designated room. The patient was an elderly male who had died following cardiac arrest. Standard postmortem procedures had been completed by nursing staff. Documentation was attached to the gurney, and the body was covered with a sheet. I transported the patient to the elevator and descended to the basement level. As I exited the elevator and began moving down the corridor, the 3rd light fixture flickered as expected. However, this time as I passed beneath the light, the gurney stopped moving. I had not applied the brake. The wheels had not encountered an obstruction. The gurney simply ceased forward motion despite my continued pushing. I checked the wheels. They rotated freely. No debris was present. The floor surface was level. I attempted to push the gurney forward again. It would not move. I pulled the gurney backward. It moved easily. I pushed forward again. It stopped at the same location beneath the 3rd light fixture. I radioed for assistance. Another transporter arrived within minutes. Together we attempted to move the gurney. It remained stationary when pushed toward the morgue but moved freely in the opposite direction. We examined the gurney mechanism thoroughly. No mechanical failure was apparent. We transferred the patient to a different gurney. The new gurney moved normally through the corridor. The original gurney was taken out of service and sent to maintenance for inspection. No defects were found. It was returned to active use the following week. I did not transport with that specific gurney again. In March of 2016, I encountered a more significant incident. I was delivering a deceased patient to the morgue at approximately 4:15 a.m. Upon entering the morgue, I noticed that one of the refrigerated storage drawers was partially open. This was a safety violation. All drawers should remain fully closed to maintain temperature and prevent contamination. I approached the open drawer to close it properly. As I reached for the handle, I heard a voice from inside the drawer. The voice was faint but distinct. It said, "Wait." I stepped back immediately. I did not open the drawer further. I radioed security and requested they respond to the morgue. A security officer arrived within minutes. I explained what I had heard. He opened the drawer fully. It was empty. No body was present. The interior was clean and maintained at proper temperature. The officer checked the morgue log. No bodies had been removed from that drawer within the previous 12 hours. He suggested I might have heard sounds from the refrigeration compressor or ventilation system. I did not argue. I completed the patient delivery and left the morgue. Following this incident, I requested reassignment to a different shift or department. My request was denied due to staffing needs. I continued working night shift but began to limit morgue deliveries when possible. I would coordinate with other transporters to handle those assignments. In August of 2016, a new policy was implemented requiring all morgue deliveries to be conducted by two-person teams during night shift hours. No explanation was provided for the policy change. It was presented as a safety enhancement measure. I later learned from a supervisor that the policy had been implemented following multiple staff reports of unusual experiences in the morgue and basement corridor. The reports had been submitted confidentially and were not shared broadly with staff. I remained employed at Riverside Hospital until June of 2018. The two-person morgue policy remained in effect throughout that period. During my final month of employment, I was conducting a routine supply delivery to the basement level when I encountered a physician I had not seen before. He was standing in the corridor near the third light fixture, reviewing a medical chart. I asked if he needed directions. He stated he was familiar with the building and did not require assistance. As I passed him, I noticed the identification badge clipped to his coat. The photo showed a different individual. The name on the badge did not match his appearance. I continued walking and glanced back. The corridor was empty. The physician was no longer visible. I reported this to security. They reviewed security camera footage from the basement corridor. No individual matching my description appeared on the recordings during the time frame I specified. I completed my shift and submitted my 2-week notice the following morning. I currently work in medical device sales and no longer have contact with hospital environments outside of brief client meetings. I occasionally drive past Riverside Hospital. The building remains operational. The basement level is visible from the exterior parking area. The windows are frosted and provide no interior view. I have not entered that building since my employment ended. A former colleague contacted me last year. She asked if I remembered the morgue incidents. I confirmed that I did. She informed me that the two-person morgue policy had been discontinued due to staffing constraints. Single-person transports had resumed. She stated that multiple staff members had requested transfers from night shift within the first month of the policy change. I did not ask for additional details. Riverside Hospital continues to operate. The morgue remains in use. I do not know if the experiences I documented continue to occur. I retained copies of my incident reports. They are stored with my employment records. I have not shared these accounts publicly until now. Thank you to everyone who shared their experience. Grateful to everyone who opened up about what they lived through. Your bravery fuels this channel. The unexplained doesn't wait for acceptance. It arrives uninvited. These weren't flukes or random chance. They were genuine experiences. Something you can't rationalize. If you've experienced something you can't explain, share it through email. Hit like if you enjoyed today's pick and let me know which one shook you the hardest. Reality has cracks. See you next time. Till then, it's your storyteller Andrew signing off.